In 1942, a Viennese psychiatrist watched his life's work burn. His pregnant wife, his parents, his manuscript, a decade of research on the meaning of human existence, all consumed. He was left with nothing but a number tattooed on his arm, and a question that would either destroy him or reveal the most dangerous truth about human consciousness. That the one thing that cannot be taken from you is also the one thing most people voluntarily surrender every single day. You are doing it right now. This voluntary surrender. This quiet catastrophe of meaning. By the end of this video, you'll understand why the emptiness you feel isn't a personal failure. It's a predictable consequence of a single missing element. And you'll learn the exact framework Frankl used to survive hell itself, adapted for the particular hell of modern meaninglessness. Right now, before we continue, ask yourself this question and notice. Don't answer, just notice the quality of the silence that follows. If I died tonight, what would I regret never becoming? Hold that silence. Feel the weight of it. That weight is not emptiness. It's something trying to speak. Here is the thesis. Meaning is not discovered in comfort or constructed from pleasure. It is forged in the act of choosing what you will stand for when everything else has been stripped away. Frankl didn't find meaning despite the concentration camps. He found it because of them, because suffering forced him to confront the only question that matters. Who will I be in the space between what happens to me and how I respond? We're going to dismantle this in 3 movements. First, the invisible mechanism. How meaning actually operates in consciousness, and why Frankl's existential revelation in Auschwitz rewrites everything psychology thought it knew about human motivation. Second, the consequence cascade. The 3-layered collapse that happens when this mechanism breaks: psychological, behavioral, and existential. And why modern life is specifically designed to sever you from meaning. Third, the practical framework. Frankl's logotherapy converted into a 3-part system you can use today to locate meaning in the wreckage of contemporary existence, even when nothing makes sense. Let's begin where meaning begins, in the architecture of consciousness itself. Viktor Frankl arrived at Auschwitz with one possession hidden in the lining of his coat: a scientific manuscript. It contained his life's work, a radical theory that contradicted Freud, that challenged the entire edifice of psychoanalysis. The theory was simple and unforgivable. Human beings are not primarily driven by pleasure or power. They are driven by meaning. The guards found it. They burned it. And in that moment, Frankl faced a choice that would become the foundation of everything. He could let the loss destroy him, or he could become the living proof of his own theory. He chose the latter. And what he discovered in the camps wasn't just survival. It was the invisible mechanism by which consciousness constructs purpose from chaos. The mechanism works like this. Meaning doesn't exist in the world. It exists in the space between you and the world, in your orientation toward suffering, toward time, toward the future. Frankl called this the will to meaning, and he observed something that shattered traditional psychology. The prisoners who survived longest weren't the strongest or the healthiest. They were the ones who maintained an orientation toward a future task. One man survived because he needed to finish a scientific series. Another because his child waited for him in another country. Another because he had a story only he could tell. The content didn't matter. What mattered was the orientation. The posture of consciousness towards something beyond the present moment that required this particular person to exist. This is not hope. Hope is passive. This is existential assignment. The bone-deep recognition that there is something that needs you to exist, something unfinished that cannot be finished if you disappear. Listen to this moment from the camps, reconstructed from Frankl's own account. A man approached Frankl in the barracks, confessing he'd given up. His wife was dead. His work was gone. There was no reason to continue. Frankl asked him one question: is there anyone who needs you? Any work undone that only you can complete? The man went silent, then remembered. He'd been writing a series of geography textbooks for children. The final volumes remained unfinished. No one else had the research. No one else could complete them. That recognition, not inspiration, not hope, but simple factual necessity, kept him alive through another winter. The mechanism revealed. Meaning emerges when consciousness recognizes itself as irreplaceable in relation to a task, a person, or a truth. The philosophical root runs deeper than Frankl. It echoes through Kierkegaard's concept of the self as a relation that relates itself to itself. Through Nietzsche's eternal return, the test of whether you could bear your life repeated infinitely. Through Heidegger's Dasein, the being there, the entity for whom being itself is a question. But Frankl made it practical. He made it survivable. Psychologically, here's what happens. Your consciousness is a meaning-making machine. It cannot not interpret. It cannot not assign significance. When you lack an orientation, a North Star, a future task, an existential assignment, your consciousness doesn't go quiet. It floods with what Frankl called the existential vacuum. The vacuum doesn't feel like absence. It feels like noise, restlessness, the compulsive reach for distraction, the endless scroll. Diet? The numbing substance, the shallow pleasure that leaves you emptier than before. Because your consciousness is trying to make meaning from material that cannot bear meaning. It's like trying to get nutrition from eating sand. The hunger doesn't stop. It intensifies. The inner dynamic is this. Meaning operates through three channels, what Frankl called the triadic nature of existence. First, creative values, meaning through what you bring into the world. The work you do, the beauty you create, the truth you speak that only you can speak. Second, experiential values, meaning through what you receive from the world. Love, beauty, newness, truth encountered. The moments that crack you open. Third, attitudinal values, meaning through the stance you take toward unavoidable suffering. This is the one that cannot be taken from you. Even when creation is impossible and experience is reduced to pain, you still choose how you will carry what cannot be put down. This third channel is where Frankl discovered the most dangerous truth. Suffering ceases to be suffering the moment it finds meaning. Not that it becomes pleasant, not that it disappears, but that it transforms from meaningless agony into purposeful ordeal. From random cruelty into a test you're choosing to pass. Think of meaning like the roots of a tree. You never see them. They're underground, invisible, doing their work in darkness. But without them, the tree cannot stand. The moment the roots sever, the moment the orientation toward meaning breaks, the tree doesn't bend. It collapses. Modern life is designed to sever roots, to keep you surface level, to offer shallow soil and call it freedom. And there are consequences to living rootless. Consequences that cascade through every layer of your existence, creating a specific kind of collapse that Frankl predicted with terrifying accuracy. Let's trace that collapse now. Let's see what happens when the mechanism breaks. When the meaning-making mechanism severs, the collapse doesn't announce itself. There's no dramatic moment, no clear breaking point. Instead, there's a slow inland drowning, a suffocation so gradual you mistake it for normal breathing. Let's trace the cascade through three layers: psychological, behavioral, existential, each one feeding the next, each one tightening the noose. Frankl called it the existential vacuum, but that term is too gentle for what actually happens. The vacuum isn't empty space. It's a black hole of consciousness, pulling everything into its gravitational field. Here's what occurs psychologically. Your mind, deprived of meaningful orientation, doesn't rest. It accelerates. It begins what Frankl termed Sunday neurosis, that peculiar anxiety that floods in the moment you stop being distracted. That tightness in your chest on Sunday evening. That restlessness when you finally have free time. That voice asking, "Is this all there is?" But it goes deeper. Your psyche begins manufacturing pseudo-meanings, counterfeit purposes that mimic meaning without delivering it. You convince yourself that the promotion will fix it, that the relationship will complete you, that the next purchase, the next vacation, the next achievement will finally fill the void. Each one fails, and each failure doesn't teach you the lesson. It deepens your desperation, because you're not actually seeking pleasure or success. You're seeking something that can bear the weight of your existence. And these shallow vessels shatter under that weight every single time. Listen to this. A successful lawyer sat in Frankl's office, 42 years old, partner at his firm, beautiful family, wealth, status, everything the world told him would equal fulfillment. And yet he described waking at 3 a.m. seized by a terror he couldn't name. Not anxiety about anything specific, just the crushing awareness that his entire life, the suits, the cases, the achievements, felt like an elaborate performance of someone else's script. He built everything right, and it meant nothing. Frankl's diagnosis: existential vacuum masquerading as depression. The man wasn't sick. His psyche was screaming that he'd never asked the fundamental question: what is my unique task? What meaning requires my specific existence to be fulfilled? The psychological consequence crystallizes into this. You begin to experience your own life from the outside, as spectator, not participant. Frankl observed this in the camps. The prisoners who'd lost their why developed what he called give up it is, a psychological surrender that preceded physical death by days. They stopped washing, stopped caring, lay down in the barracks and smoked their last cigarette. The cigarette that meant they'd given up their tomorrow's ration for today's comfort, signaling they saw no tomorrow worth saving for. You see the same pattern in modern life, just slower, more socially acceptable. The person who stopped trying, who automated their existence, who watches their own life like a movie they've seen before and didn't like the first time. When meaning disappears, your behavior doesn't randomize. It follows a predictable pattern, one visible in brain chemistry and neural architecture. Neurologically, here's the cascade. Your prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for future-oriented thinking, impulse control, and complex planning, begins to atrophy from disuse. Because why plan for a future that feels meaningless? Why delay gratification for a tomorrow you don't believe in? Meanwhile, your limbic system, the ancient reward-seeking machinery, takes control. You shift from behavior of action, oriented toward meaningful goals, to behavior-seeking compulsive pursuit of stimulation that never satisfies. Dopamine becomes dysregulated, not from pleasure, but from the anticipation of pleasure that never delivers. Your brain gets trapped in a loop. Seek, consume, feel empty, seek again. The scroll, the binge, the shopping cart, the pornography, the substance. The 12 open tabs promising something, anything to fill the space. This isn't weakness. This is neuroscience's predictable response to meaninglessness. When higher-order purpose vanishes, primitive reward-seeking dominates. You replace depth with frequency, quality with quantity, presence with performance. You schedule every hour because unstructured time means confronting the void. You optimize every process because efficiency distracts from purpose. You achieve, acquire, accumulate. And each victory feels like a loss because victories, without meaning, are just expensive defeats. Frankl saw this too. In the camps, some prisoners coped through frenetic activity, volunteering for every work detail, staying busy, never stopping. They thought they were surviving. They were just dying faster, burning themselves out in motion that meant nothing. The behavioral consequence: you become efficient at living a life you don't actually want to live. This is where the cascade completes, where psychological emptiness and behavioral compensation collapse into existential crisis. Here's what happens at the deepest level. You begin to experience what Frankl called provisional existence, the sense that your real life hasn't started yet, that you're in the waiting room of your own existence. That meaning, purpose, fulfillment, these things will arrive after the promotion, After you lose the weight, after you meet the person, after the conditions align. But the conditions never align. Because you're not actually waiting for conditions. You're waiting for permission to believe your life matters now. In this body, with these limitations, in this moment, the existential consequence crystallizes. You defer meaning indefinitely, then wake one day realizing you've deferred your entire life. Frankl described a moment in Auschwitz that captures this perfectly. He was marching to a work site in freezing darkness, beaten by guards, feet bleeding through torn shoes. A fellow prisoner whispered, "If our wives could see us now," and suddenly Frankl's consciousness split. He imagined himself years later, standing in a warm lecture hall, teaching students about the psychology of the concentration camps, using his own suffering as a case study, making it mean something by transforming it into knowledge that could help others. That vision, not escape, not denial, but transformation, made the march bearable. Not pleasant, bearable. Because it meant something. The existential truth, suffering without meaning, is unbearable. Suffering with meaning is transformable. And modern life offers you endless suffering, alienation, loneliness, anxiety, emptiness, with no framework to transform it. Just prescriptions to numb it. In products to distract from it. Platitudes that tell you to be positive while your existence crumbles. Here's the cliffhanger insight, the thing that changes everything. You think the problem is that life is meaningless. That meaning is absent. That the vacuum is empty. But Frankl discovered the opposite. Meaning isn't absent. It's obscured. Covered over by layers of distraction, obligation, and cultural programming. The existential vacuum isn't empty. It's full of your unlived life, your unanswered calling, your specific, irreplaceable task screaming beneath the noise. The problem isn't that you need to create meaning. It's that you need to uncover the meaning that's already asking for you. And that requires one fundamental shift. A reversal so complete, it changes the entire architecture of how you meet existence. Let's make that shift now. Here is the reversal that breaks everything open. You've been asking the wrong question. You wake each day asking, what do I want from life? What can life give me? What will make me happy? Fulfilled, successful, complete? This is the question of a consumer, of someone standing before existence with an empty cart, waiting for it to deliver satisfaction. Frankl's revelation, the one that kept him breathing in Auschwitz, the one that rebuilt psychology from its foundation, was this. Life is asking you the question, not what you want from it, what it wants from you, not what you can extract, what you can answer. Every moment, life poses a question that only you can answer. Not with words, with your existence, with who you choose to become in response to what you've been given. The suffering, the gifts, the limitations, the possibilities. Listen to how Frankl described this shift. In the camps, he realized that asking what is the meaning of my life was like asking what is the best move in chess. There is no universal answer. The meaning changes with each situation, each moment, each configuration of circumstances. The question isn't abstract. It's radically specific. What does this moment require of me? What is my unique response to this unique situation? The prisoners who survived weren't the ones waiting for liberation to give their lives meaning. They were the ones who recognized, this suffering is asking me who I will be. This moment demands a response only I can give. One chose to share his last piece of bread, making meaning through compassion when compassion seemed insane. Another chose to maintain dignity, washing when there was barely water, standing straight when beaten down, making meaning through the refusal to be reduced. Another chose to bear witness, to remember, to survive specifically so he could tell the story that would otherwise die with him. The content varied. The mechanism was identical. They stopped asking what life owed them and started answering what life was asking of them. This is the shift, the mirror cracking, the reversal that changes everything. You are not the center of a meaning you must create. You are the response to a meaning that already exists, waiting for you to fulfill it. Like a hole in the universe, shaped exactly like you. A gap that can only be filled by your specific existence, your specific choices, your specific way of meeting what you've been given. Frankl called this the uniqueness and singleness of existence. The recognition that your life is an unrepeatable question posed once and never again. And every hour you're alive, that question intensifies. What will you answer? Who will you become in the space between what happens and how you respond? The cage was never about finding your purpose. It was about recognizing that your purpose is finding you. In every moment that demands a response only you can give. Now the question becomes, how do you live this? How do you make this reversal operational in the wreckage of contemporary existence? That's what we build now. The practical framework, the system Frankl forged in hell, and you can use today. This isn't theory anymore. This is architecture. The structure Frankl built to survive Auschwitz, translated into a framework you can use to survive the specific hell of modern meaninglessness. 3 practices. 3 layers. Internal, external, integration. Each one philosophically rooted, psychologically sound, neuroscientifically effective, and actionable today. This is how you stop drifting. This is how you answer. For the internal practice, the Socratic reversal, every morning before you touch your phone, before you enter the noise, sit with one question, not as meditation, as interrogation. Do it as existential inventory. The question is this: what is asking for me today that will go unanswered if I don't show up? Not what you want to do, not what you're obligated to do. What will only get done if you specifically exist today? What requires your exact configuration of skills, scars, perspective, presence? Write 3 answers. Keep them concrete. Make them specific to today. Examples: this conversation with my daughter that only I can have in the way only I can have it. This paragraph I'm writing that carries a truth only I've discovered through my specific failures. This person at work who's struggling, who trusts me in a way they trust no one else. You're not creating meaning from nothing. You're tuning your perception to the meaning that's already there, waiting for your response. This practice rewires you from entitlement consciousness, what should I get, to response consciousness, what am I being asked to give? Neurologically, you're activating your prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for meaning making and future orientation. You're building the neural architecture of agency, of authorship, of being the person who answers rather than the person who waits to be satisfied. Do this for 30 days. Watch how your perception of time changes. Hours stop feeling empty because you're no longer trying to fill them, you're answering them. For the external practice, the irreplaceability test, once per week, execute one action that passes this test. If I don't do this, it doesn't happen. Not tasks someone else can do. Not obligations anyone could fulfill. Something that requires your specific existence, your particular way of seeing, your irreplaceable presence. This is where most people fail. They confuse activity with answerability. They stay busy with replaceable tasks and wonder why they feel dispensable. Here's how to identify irreplaceable action. Ask 3 questions about any potential action. Does it require my specific perspective, skill, or relationship? Not just any human, mean specifically. Will it leave a gap if I don't do it? Not an inconvenience, an actual absence that matters. Does it align with what only I have learned through my particular suffering or journey? The wisdom earned through your scars, not generic advice anyone could give. If it passes all 3, execute it immediately. That week, no exceptions. External action rooted in irreplaceable responsibility transforms suffering from meaningless to meaningful. Each time you take irreplaceable action, you're strengthening the neural pathways between intention and execution. You're proving to your brain that you matter, that your choices have consequence, That you're not passive, not dispensable, not decorative. Your sense of agency, the psychological recognition that you affect reality, grows with use like muscle. Every irreplaceable action is a repetition. Every week you do this, you're building the architecture of a self that knows its own necessity. Start small. One action per week, but make it pass the test. Make it something only you can do. For the integration practice, the stance statement, create a single sentence that defines your existential stance. Not your goals, not your values. Your answer to the question existence is asking you. This is identity-level work. This is who you're becoming through how you're choosing to respond. The structure. I am the person who chooses this response even when hit with this resistance, this suffering, this obstacle. This isn't aspiration. This is declaration. This is the stance you're taking toward your unrepeatable life. Example from Frankl's framework. I am the person who finds meaning in what I give, even when everything is taken from me. Sit with your last 6 months. Identify the moments you felt most alive, most necessary, most aligned, even if they were difficult. Look for the pattern. What were you answering? What were you refusing to surrender? That's your stance. Write it as a declaration. Then, and this is critical, speak it every morning after your Socratic reversal, not as affirmation, as reminder, as reorientation, as the answer you're choosing to embody today. You're creating what psychologists call narrative identity, the story you tell yourself about who you are. But you're not crafting it from fantasy. You're distilling it from action, from the patterns of how you've actually responded when tested. Neurologically, you're building coherence between self-concept and behavior. Your brain craves consistency. When your identity and your actions align, cognitive dissonance disappears. You stop feeling fragmented. You start feeling integral, literally integrated. Your stance becomes your North Star, not what you want, who you're answering as. Internal practice tunes your perception to meaning's presence. External practice proves your irreplaceability through action. Integration practice embeds it into identity, into who you are at the level where change becomes permanent. This is the framework. This is what Frankl discovered in hell and offered to a world that desperately needs it. Not because life is meaningless, but because meaning is always there, always asking, always waiting for you to stop waiting and start answering. Now you have to choose what you'll do with this knowledge. Here's your decision. You either continue living as if meaning is something you're waiting to discover, something out there, someday, after conditions align, or you recognize the devastating truth. Meaning is asking for you right now, in this unfinished life, with these exact scars, waiting for your answer. You can keep postponing, keep optimizing, keep consuming, keep waiting for your real life to begin, or you can start answering. If this video disturbed something in you, if it named the thing you've been feeling but couldn't articulate, that disturbance is the sound of life asking you a question. Hit like if you're ready to stop waiting for meaning and start answering it. Not as a gesture, as a declaration, as the first small choice in a chain of choices that could rebuild your entire orientation toward existence. Subscribe if you refuse to live as a passive recipient of existence. If you want to keep building the architecture of consciousness deliberately, if you recognize that understanding these mechanisms isn't enough, you have to keep confronting them, keep sharpening your response, keep choosing who you're becoming. This channel exists for people who understand that the deepest questions don't have comfortable answers. That transformation requires confrontation. That meaning isn't found in motivation. It's forged in the decision to answer what only you can answer. Share this if you know someone living in provisional existence, waiting for their real life to start. Not to fix them, to offer them the question they might need to hear. What is asking for you that will go unanswered if you don't show up? You don't need to say anything. Just send them this. Let the question do its work. Frankl walked out of Auschwitz weighing 90 pounds, everyone he loved dead, his life's work ashes. And he discovered what might be the most dangerous truth human consciousness can hold. The question was never whether life has meaning. The question was always whether you would become the answer. You are standing in that space right now. The space between stimulus and response. Between what's happened to you and who you're choosing to become because of it. The meaning you're searching for isn't hiding. It's been asking for you all along. The only question left is whether you'll finally answer.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more of such deep, thought-provoking content.